Well, I tried doing something new and making a character deep dive, but seeing as that bombed in something that could only be considered a failure of biblical proportions, I learned an important lesson, that is, new things are scary and never try to do anything new. So hopefully you can take that away from me. Anyway, on to the main topic. Throughout my videos, I've mentioned one name over and over: Jeremiah Sands. This man worms his way into basically every other video. I could make a video demoing a toaster, and I would still find a way to bring up Jeremiah Sands. So today, I'm actually going to talk about him. But first, I need to clear something up. In my video on the Nowhere King, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. But you probably did, because that's probably what introduced you to my channel. Woohoo! Anyway, in my video on the Nowhere King, I called him a pathetic villain. I thought nothing of it and moved on. I thought people would understand what I meant. Then I read a comment that amounted to, "Totally agree with your views. The Nowhere King sucks and is pathetic. He killed my dog and committed tax fraud." I was shocked. So I'm going to explain what a pathetic villain is. First, villains are very hard to talk about, because when I say a villain was a bad villain, or say that I hated a villain, that could mean they were either really good or really bad. I hate Dolores Umbridge from Harry Potter. That said, I think she is well written because the emotion the author wanted you to feel was hatred. Conversely, I hate Fire King Ozai, but I don't think it is in the way that the showrunners would like. So, what is a pathetic villain? Most villains have a through line, a goal they are trying to achieve, or some sort of hope that is the basis of their character. A pathetic villain doesn't have this. A pathetic villain is aimless and particularly human. For example, I consider characters like Amon Goth from, or at least his depiction of him, to be a pathetic villain in Schindler's List. Or someone like Darius from the movie Pig, another pathetic villain. Both of these characters are very good, but they're very, very human characters, and that's what makes them pathetic. Anyway, enough beating around the bush. Let's talk about Jeremiah Sands. JK, we digress once more, because I actually want to talk about the members of the Children of the New Dawn cult. I think this is important to understanding Jeremiah Sands' character. So, let's get to it. The members I'm going to talk about are Sister Lucy, Mother Marlene, and Brother Swan. The other ones aren't really important, and these ones are because each one acts as an interesting visual representation of the different reasons why individuals join cults or religions, or really any other group for that matter. Now, I am not dissing on religion or anything like that. I'm just talking about the characters. Let's start with Sister Lucy. Lucy represents the conflicted member. While on the outside, her adherence to the group seems sound. This is clearly demonstrated when she gambles with her own life, when Jeremiah Sands hands her the Russian roulette revolver and tells her to, play Russian roulette with herself. But on the inside, she's becoming disillusioned. This is a very interesting contrast to the other members of the Children of the New Dawn cult. You can see this when Red spares her, as when Red approaches her, she's clearly afraid, and he still has that connection from when he's watched her gamble with her own life at the hands of Jeremiah Sands. Very interesting to see him spare her, because he does not spare any other member of the Children of the New Dawn cult. The second member is Mother Marlene. Mother Marlene is the type of person who seeks out companionship in a faith. But just like every other member of the Children of the New Dawn cult, her love has turned into a frantic fanaticism. This severe longing for anybody to be loved, I guess you'd put it, has forced her to entirely disconnect from reality. This is evident when she encounters Red in the final third of the movie. At this point, she's already done a lot of crazy stuff, but she starts to boast to Red about her relationship with Jeremiah for no real reason. I mean, I guess she might have thought she could flirt with Red, but that's just dumb. She was a woman so lost in the sauce of wanting to be loved that she truly became a wretched character, only wanting to be loved from a man who clearly does not love her and would never love her. And she is a very, very, again, wretched character. Finally, the last member I want to talk about is Brother Swan. In my opinion, Brother Swan is the most frightening of the children of the New Dawn. If Lucy was a representation of a conflicted follower, and Marlene was the lonely follower, then Swan is the fanatic follower. Swan gets nothing out of this deal, but he is still the right hand of Jeremiah. He kills without hesitation and hangs on to every word that comes out of Jeremiah Sand's mouth. One image that will always stay with me is when, at the very end of the movie, he is looking up at Red holding the axe and says, "She burned brightly, that Mandy. Don't you think? Still better to burn out than..." And then he gets killed because he's talking trash to angry lumberjack Nicolas Cage, which is not a great plan. So, yeah. But that total devotion to Jeremiah, even to the point of death, is a frightening sight. It is scarier than any of the malformed bikers. I mean, I guess save for Scratch, who repeats a similar line about Mandy burning, even as he himself is on fire. But that's neither here nor there. Swan, in my opinion, is even scarier than Jeremiah, because we see moments where Jeremiah falters. Swan never has these moments. Swan is an individual so radicalized that he would continue the mission of Jeremiah even if Jeremiah faltered. And he would see that Jeremiah could do no wrong. And I think this is really scary because we've seen this in real life. Certain people will flock to these demagogues nowadays and will entirely disconnect from reality and place their entire being on the words of this person they're following, willing to go do horrible acts just because that's now what they believe, because they base their entire personality on this person. But let's now get to talking about Jeremiah. Jeremiah, in my opinion, is the most pathetic villain I've seen, and I love him for it. He's a disgraced country singer turned cult leader. Jeremiah is equally frightening and miserable. Jeremiah doesn't actually get a whole lot of screen time, but you can get some really interesting insights from the scenes he does have. I'm going to talk about them, then touch on the possible supernaturality. I'm not even sure if that's a word. Anyway, I'm going to talk about, that of Jeremiah. Jeremiah is a man whose only goal is to be loved. He desires power and control, and that's why he has created this cult. He claims to have these great visions, and he's a narcissist, as he expects everyone around him to bend to his will. And this is, again, a very realistic depiction of these narcissistic leaders that we see today. But we also see the common failing of this type of person when Mandy laughs at him. Firstly, a little background. Mandy has pretty much been drugged and kidnapped at this point, and Jeremiah is essentially saying that you're special, baby, I'm special, we should be special together, which is not a great way to get girls. Anyway, when Mandy laughs at him, he gets furious to the point where he literally burns Mandy alive in front of Red. But Jeremiah is really just a playground bully. He throws tantrums when he doesn't get what he wants and gets butthurt when he's laughed at. And you can see this because right after Mandy laughs at him, he runs off crying and then has to give himself a little pep talk in a mirror. I'll talk more about that pep talk in a little bit. The other part of Jeremiah that is so interesting is his ego. This is what makes Jeremiah a scary villain for me, because it's what makes him a realistic villain for me. There is a scene where he's literally begging for his life when Red has finally tracked him down and is literally holding his head in his hands. And he's begging for his life and then switches to telling Red that he is Red's god now. This is crazy because this shows an inability to let go of his pride. He clings onto the notion that he is all important even when his world is crumbling all around him. This denial of reality is frighteningly real. How many real-life movie stars have plowed their careers into the ground because they refuse to acknowledge the world burning down around them? Finally, we get to the question of whether or not Jeremiah is supernatural, or if anything in the movie, Mandy, is supernatural. I've seen many different theories on whether or not the supernatural elements of Mandy are real. I personally don't think Jeremiah has supernatural powers. The one scene that could have maybe could be used as a rebuttal to that is when he's talking into the mirror after Mandy humiliates him, and his personality switches very quickly to him consoling himself. But I think that's, again, nothing but his egocentric personality and his narcissism. But I do believe that the overall supernatural elements of Mandy are real, because the main theory of the stuff not being real is that the first half is seen through Mandy's eyes, and that's why there's supernatural elements, but when Mandy dies, the supernatural elements go away, and you realize that the demons are just bikers who took some bad drugs and stuff. But the twin planetoids, twin suns at the end, I think disprove that theory. Anyway, what do you think? I think, please leave a comment whether or not you think Mandy actually is cosmic horror, or at least is supernatural or not. Anyway, I'd love to hear your feedback. I know this has been a little while since my last video, but I've had a lot of stuff going on with school and all that. As always, thank you guys so much for just tuning in. It means the world to me. I love getting to do this for you guys, even if editing does feel like a chore sometimes. Also, I'm sorry. I said I was going to do whatever was voted on in my poll, but I can't read, and I totally misread the fact that it was the entity from The Dark and the Wicked that someone wanted to see a review of, not the Children of the New Dawn, but oops. So I will actually probably have a combo villain deep dive video of both the entity from The Dark and the Wicked and the entity from the short horror film Chair, because they're pretty similar, and I don't think I have enough to say about either really one of them individually, so, you know, I'm gonna combine them. Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in as always. I love y'all. Have a great day. Peace.